Warm welcome everybody. It's a year since Farrokh left us. Yeah, that was day before yesterday, and just a day before Nowruz, right? At that point of time, and very sad. But things have to move on, and the show must go on. The best way to do that is to keep the memory of the person alive, yeah, and celebrate the person's life. So today is not going to be any obituary or whatever. Those who had the pleasure of attending, we call him Master because Lord is Lord of Kolaba, that is Farrokh, yeah, and that's Master Vinayak. And Vinayak, I'm sure those who attended the walk enjoyed his memories, which were relieved on the streets of Mumbai at various places. We started just opposite CSMT station, or we would insist on calling it VT. But that is where we started from, and we went through various locations to see where he worked at some point of time, and Parsi Bazaar area and various locations till we finally reached Khaki Lab. And this walk was essentially to raise funds for a small organization which helps underprivileged children to study. It's called Angel Express. I've seen it because they do it in gardens across the city. And this is something, yeah.
I volunteer.
You volunteer. Oh, lovely. And the reason we are, this is something which was very near and dear to his heart. Yeah, education, especially for the underprivileged people. If it's a girl child, then even more. Yeah. So with that in mind, we thought we'll raise funds for that. And thank you, Vinay, for arranging this walk. I'm sure all those who attended enjoyed the same. Farrokh, or is that Farrokh? Right?
Farrokh.
Yeah, he would always come. Or my daughter used to call him Yes, Yes, No. That's what his surname literally is, G and Na. So she used to call him Mr. Yes, Yes, No. And we have some very loving memories about him. This is a chair which he loved to sit on. So we just got it polished and woven again to make it look brand new, so that hopefully his spirit is still sitting here listening to all of you chatting about it, right? And there was earlier chair which was an IKEA chair which we had bought, which he was not very happy with. This is too modern, he would say. And then somebody donated this, which was a pleasure for him. The name happens to be a Bombay fornicator. Don't get ideas about it. It's just to recline, and he would love to read books whenever he would come to this place. Yeah? So it's something that he really enjoyed. So between his two homes, one which was in the Parsi lying in hospital, and one was in Kolaba, on the way he would come to this place, right? And he came for the first walk. This would be about a decade back, and he asked too many uncomfortable questions, just the way he always did. So I thought that it's best to co-opt a person like this and to answer those questions and make sure that he answers those himself, right? And so the association started, and he has contributed immensely, especially to the lab. All the initial talks, today Sukhi is not here. Sukhi continues to with the baton forward of doing the online talks, and we have more than 300 online talks which were done. And without his solid support for the first 150, it would have not been possible to do so many talks, because the kind of filter that he had to ensure that the best people talk was amazing. Sometimes to the extension of irritating some people, but that's how Farrokh was. Right? He would call a spade, and he would call a spade a double spade if you want. Yeah. So that's how it is. So I won't take too much time. I thought the first memorial talk should be from a person with whom Farrokh worked closely in the later part of his life, when he wanted to give back to the society, chronicling everything in Parsiana. And I thought Mr. Patel needs no introduction, would be the most ideal person to do the first talk, to talk to us about Parsiana in general. He's not doing a presentation, he's only going to talk. And I thought it is best that you need not stand, you can sit and do it, so it's easy for you. And after everything is over, then if anybody wants to add anything about Farrokh, we can do that at the end, right? Please come, sir.
So I'll stand if you don't mind.
Stand?
Yeah, because like
there's a tall chair.
Yeah, that would be nice. That'd be ideal. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I won't need the computer. I'll just have the.
I'll close.
Yeah. I have to thank all of you for coming on a Sunday evening. I never venture out of the house, so I know it's, all of you must be good friends of Farrokh or of Khaki Tours or even of Parsiana, so thank you very much for that. I got to know Farrokh. I'd gone for a KR Kama Oriental dinner. They used to have these seminars once a year, and then a select people were invited for dinner. And I was sitting at the same table with him, and I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was a chartered accountant, but he was interested in writing, and he was writing for a blog called Anonymous Writers. So I said, then why don't you write for Parsiana? So he said, okay, he would give it a try. And fortunately, it worked out. But I was used to people in different professions coming into journalism because they like to write, or they were inclined to push for a cause or whatever it was. But when he told me that he was involved with Khaki Tours, I was totally puzzled. I couldn't understand why a chartered accountant who wanted to go into creative writing, well, not journalistic writing, would also be interested in tours. To our mind, tours are basically, you go from here, you go over there, you pay a certain amount, and it's over. But he seemed very enthused about it. So he would talk to me and he said, "We got a Khaki Labs, we got a foundation, we're inviting guest speakers." So it became apparent that this wasn't just another tour company. This was something that was more of an institution. And when Bharat asked me to speak, I was very flattered. I was very happy because I would very much have liked to speak on Farrokh. He was a dear member of our team for many years, and always good-natured, good-hearted, took whatever setbacks that there may have been, and he came to the profession rather late. Normally journalists, maybe under 30, they would come into the thing and write and go on. An older person finds it maybe that much more difficult. I used to teach at the Xavier Institute of Communications. I was teaching there for about 40 years, and I used to teach news reporting. So in the initial years, anybody could enroll for the particular module, and there were basically a lot of people who were working, but who had a yearning to write and wanted to learn about writing. So that was the first group of people who used to come in the first few years. Then they said, no, it has to be graduates, and it became a full-time course. And then you got students who came to you older. So maybe in a year we had about 40 to 50 students. Out of them, about 3 would be good writers. You felt that whatever you taught them, they could pick it up quite easily. Then you had the rest of the class, which you had to sort of coax them along, explain, get them to understand a little more about the structure of writing, which was the main thing. And then you had 2 or 3 students, or maybe 1 or 2 students, who were saying, why this, why not this, what's wrong with this, why can't it be? And you'd have to break your head a little with them. By the end of the 15 lectures that I would give for 2 hours each, nearly all of them could write an accurate news opening. But writing is hard work, and there has to be a strong motivation. So when Farrokh told me he was writing for Anonymous Writers, I was impressed, because here he was just writing for the sake of writing. There was no return, there was no audience, there was nothing definite. So it was a pleasure working with him. Farrokh would get excited about a story, he'd follow it through. And then he'd tell you, I spoke on this day, and I did this, I did that, I went here, I went there, and there. You go on, and I keep thinking, for one small article or for one article, so much legwork. And then if he didn't enjoy a subject, then you had to push him forward to, what about this, what about that, try this, try that. So that kind of, his approach was not totally professional, but when he got into a story, he was very good. He wrote well, he got all the things, he got the photographs, and Parina, who works with us, has given a note saying that when his story appeared on the cover, he was quite thrilled with that. There were times when I made him rework articles, and Parina said he wasn't very thrilled about that. But I was just looking up on some of this literature that Anton Chekhov, the writer, was corresponding with Tolstoy. They were both contemporaries and good friends. And Tolstoy told Chekhov that at the best of times I can't abide Shakespeare. He said, but your plays are even worse. He told Chekhov that. So, in writing, in a sense, you are brutal, because what you have before you is what the person has written, and then you've got to evaluate it, you've got to see how it is, where it is, and fits in, where it doesn't fit in. And of course, the important thing with writing, of course, is the structure of the writing. And to get people to understand that takes a little bit of time. So when he talked to me about khaki tours, I puzzled over that. Then when Bharat came and asked me whether I'd give the talk, I said, okay. So I said, let me go back and examine why it is that someone with an intellectual, artistic interest would be taken up with the tours. And then I found that some of the top writers, some of the best writers, have written on places, and those stories or those sentences or those write-ups are classic. For example, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, which Victor Hugo wrote, he wrote it because he was concerned about the preservation of the Notre Dame Cathedral. It seemed that some stained glass windows were removed and plain glass was put in so more light could enter. Now that is logical, you would do it, but if you're building a monument, which is supposed to be, a grand monument to the city, you wouldn't do that. So he was very concerned with that, and so were other people in Paris at that time. So Hugo, even though he had other commitments for writing, put them aside and wrote this. And in one of those things they said that he kept all his outside sort of closed to where outside out of his room, stayed over there into his flat or room or whatever it was. For 6 months he just worked on the book to get it out. And as I said, the main aim was for preservation. That's what motivated it. In French, the book was called Notre Dame de Paris, that, the Notre Dame of Paris. But when it was translated into English, it became the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And it not only made Notre Dame famous, but it also made the main protagonist, Quasimodo, famous as well. Because he was sort of a hideous-looking creature. He had been abandoned in the church. The Archbishop had taken him in, looked after him, and he used to ring the bells. And therefore he became deaf from doing that. So then I remembered that when I was in college, I had read The Great Gatsby. And then in one of my political science lectures, the professor said that some of the best literature or some of the best writing on the New World, on America, etc., had been written by Fitzgerald in The Gatsby. And he cited the example of that. So I just took it out to read it to you all. Fitzgerald is writing about the place where Gatsby stayed. This is towards the end of the novel. Most of the big shore places were closed now, and there were hardly any lights except the shadowy moving glow of a ferry boat across the Sound. And as the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away until gradually I became aware of the old island here that once flowered for Dutch sailors' eyes. Some people say Italians discovered America, but now it's more the Vikings and the Dutch. A fresh green breast of the New World, its vanished trees, the trees that made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent. Compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the first time in history with something commensurate with his capacity for wonder. This is supposed to be a classic line on America, when America first started. And there is one about Thomas Wolfe in his book on Look Homeward Angel. Thomas Wolfe's two best-known books are Look Homeward Angel and You Can't Go Home Again. When I read them in later years, I found them a little dated, but this is an opening sentence of Look Homeward Angel, which is considered to be one of the classic opening sentences. A destiny that leads the English to the Dutch is strange enough, but one that leads from Epsom into Pennsylvania, and thence into the hills that shut in Altamont over the proud shut in Altamont over the proud choral cry of the cock and the soft stone smile of the angel is touched by that dark miracle of chance which makes new magic in a dusty world. It's a little long, but this thing about a destiny that leads the Dutch into Epsom, into Pennsylvania and all, it's interesting. Again, it's places and people and how it ties together. I remember once I was having lunch, it must have been a work lunch at Ripon Club with Farrokh and some other people, and then Farrokh and I were walking back to the office. Our office is opposite the Senior Cathedral School in the Fort area, and Farrokh pointed out the lampposts, and he said the lettering on the lampposts, the numbers, has a peculiarity. I don't remember what it was exactly, the old name of the road or something or the other, and he said this was peculiar to this part of town. You wouldn't find these kind of notings on other lampposts. So I just felt quite enriched at that moment. I felt that I've been walking on the streets for years, for 50, 60 years, and I never had noticed this factor. And here was someone telling me about it. So I could see where the tours have an appeal for people to know about the place. And even if you don't share that knowledge, the fact that you have that knowledge is enlightening. So I could see where the appeal lay, that the tour guides were not very different from journalists. Journalists tell a story. The tour guides were also telling a story. The story the tour guides state may not be that different each time. With journalists, something or the other keeps changing in the story. But basically, we're in the business of telling stories. For Parsiana, we talk about the community and what is happening, and you find basically that the stories repeat. It's not that you write on something and then the next time the story, you lose sight of it. It always seems to go on, continue. I had worked in journalism. I'll tell you a little more about it later. First I studied abroad and I worked with papers over there. When I came back to India, I worked with Mino Masani on a magazine called Freedom First. I just wanted to basically get the hang of all aspects of a publication, not just over there. So Masani was a very nice man. He would always encourage young people, and he was paying me 200 rupees a month, which was just basically a stipend. So he probably felt bad, and he said, look, why don't you have this employment, personnel and productivity services? You come there half day and work. So I had to sit down and all these applications would come in, and I'd make out a big chart. So the name of the person, his qualification, his age, etc., etc. And the person who was employing always had specifications. It must have been 45 and so, this and this and this and this. Only once I think I changed I permitted someone who was younger to get into that age limit, or someone who was older to get in, I don't quite remember now. And I wasn't sitting for the interview, but then Masani told me later the employer was very annoyed that we had violated that thing. But I just thought it made sense to do it. But one thing I found that at the end of the day, when you're done this, you didn't feel a sense of satisfaction. There wasn't anything you were looking forward to the next day. Maybe if I had stayed on longer, maybe I may have got another responsibility, maybe I would have. But it just, I never wanted a desk job specifically, and I didn't want something that was monotonous, and this seemed to be monotonous. So I was quite hooked on journalism. I had offers from corporate companies, but I hadn't taken them up because I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the interviewing, I enjoyed going out. And Bharat says in his thing also that on one of the blogs or the promotional literature, that he worked at corporations and then he left them to do something that he wanted to do. So when I had graduated abroad from college, I didn't know quite what job to do. I was on the East Coast of America, and my brother was living on the West Coast. So I went to the West Coast because I could stay with him. I wouldn't have to worry about the financial cost. And I was looking for some work to do when an Indian couple, a Punjabi gentleman and a Parsi lady, were both working with Air India, decided to start a small restaurant temporary restaurant in a place called Squaw Valley in Nevada. Squaw Valley is where the Winter Olympics used to be held. And they wanted to set up a restaurant for about 2 or 3 months when the Swami of the Beatles, I forget his name now, Maharishi, sorry, yeah, was having a summer camp there. And they thought that a lot of the disciples who come will be interested in Indian cuisine. So let's put up an Indian restaurant and see how it goes. I think it was about 3 months that I planned it. I was there for about a month and then they found it very difficult to make ends meet, so I had to leave. And I was getting paid $10 a day, which is not bad, plus board and lodging. But I enjoyed the work. I'd worked in a restaurant before, also once in a Caribbean pavilion stakeout at the World's Fair. So working in a restaurant it's activity, you know, something's happening all the time. And while I was working there, there was sort of felt bad the fact that I couldn't stay on longer and I had to go after a month because they couldn't afford it. So they said there's an Indian gentleman who works on the San Francisco Examiner, and perhaps he could help me get a job in the newspaper industry. So I typed up my biodata, a letter, etc., gave it to them. They handed it in to this gentleman, Dr. Lal, I think. He won a Pulitzer Prize for scientific reporting. And Lal had taken the letter and handed it over to the city editor, who in turn called me. And it seemed that the San Francisco Examiner and the San Francisco Chronicle and the Oakland Tribune Guild, that is all the workers, plus the Management Association, the Publisher Association, had just started a course that year. This was in 1968, I think, where they wanted to get minorities into the newsroom. What was happening is that the newsrooms of the metropolitan newspapers in America were mostly all white because they wanted people who had experience. And the only place that you could get experience was in the suburbs. And most of the minorities didn't have the money to live in the suburbs. So they thought they would short circuit this and each paper would take on 4 trainees who could then go on to work in the paper having had that much experience. And when I went over there, 3 places were full, 1 was left. They interviewed me, and fortunately, it was very good of them to say, okay, we'll take you on even though you're not the minority we had in mind. This Dr. Lal, who was there, he's written about a book about Indians who went to North America initial ages. And he's mentioned in that book as well. But in those about 6 months that I was there, he never once came to say hello, or invite me or talk to me or anything else. He just seemed distant and removed. And when this book had come out, Spies, Guru, something or the other, I don't remember, I wrote to the author who I knew. He was married to a Parsi lady, saying that this is how this Dr. Lal had been. And he said he would keep it in mind for the next edition. I don't know if he ever wrote that or not. But that's how I got my break in journalism. And subsequently, I think the San Francisco Examiner still continues. Chronicle also continues, but basically all the newspapers in America are gone. From there, I'd gone to, there were no further jobs there. I went all over the West Coast looking for a job. And the people who were training me on the Examiner gave me their car and said, you go here, go there with their contacts. But I couldn't get a job. And it seemed that the Vietnam War was on, and unless somebody was drafted or died, there weren't any openings. People were sticking on to their jobs. So I'd gone back to the East Coast and I applied for newspaper jobs. I went to Hartford and I went to the Hartford Times. They said, no, we don't have any openings. I'd gone to the personnel department. Then I came back and I saw an ad in one of their bulletin newspapers, publishers' newspapers, saying that they had an opening for journalists. So I wrote to them, and then they called me, and fortunately they took me on. And I said that I was going to go back to India because it was my intention to do so. I hadn't come to stay. But even then, knowing the fact that they're investing in somebody who would not be a long-lasting asset for them, they kept me. So I must say that the America in the 60s was a different place from what it is today. I wasn't white, I was a foreigner, I wasn't an immigrant, I was still a student, but they took me on, they taught me, they trained me, and I used to go to these places in New England, all these little sort of small little towns where you think that people perhaps would be distrustful of foreigners, But no, they were most welcoming, and it was really a different America from what it is today, or what you read about today. When I came back to India, and that was in 1970, I was looking for a job. And most of the newspapers weren't that interested in hiring me. Indian Express had an opening, but that was on the desk, and I wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be in the field writing. I got a few offers, some corporate jobs, but I wasn't interested in the corporate world. I wanted to go back into writing. I wanted journalism. I enjoyed it. And then I met Minu Masani, and Masani said he had just lost his seat in Parliament, so he said he was going to devote more time to other activities, and he got, they had the Democratic Research Service, which had a publication called Freedom First, which was a monthly, and Masani asked whether I would help him with that, so I said fine, I would do that, because I wanted to learn other aspects of journalism. I knew about writing, reporting, but I didn't know about editing, I didn't know about layouts, I didn't know about the printing press, the liaison, everything else. So this gave me an ideal opportunity to do that. And after I'd done that for about 2 years, I thought, let me do something on my own. In those days, there were very few publications around. Besides the main newspapers like Times, Express, Free Press, and Femina Illustrated Weekly, there were hardly any other publications around. It was a very long, cumbersome process to get a publication going. You had to be a really big business house to do that. So I thought, let me do something on my own, and I thought that the Parsi community, being what I thought was basically in Bombay, would be fairly easy to cover all over the place. You would get a lot of your stories, and I said I had a Fiat car my dad had bought, and I sold it off. That time you still got money for an old car, even if you used it. I got about 20,000 rupees. I took that, and then my mother had a creche, and so we took about 225 square feet of that, and 3 of us sat on one table, and one person was the administrator, accounting person, one person was the outdoor work, but they were all able and talented people that we had. We were very fortunate that we got people who were inclined to doing something, working on a small publication when they could have easily got jobs probably in larger corporations, and the ones who were Parsis definitely would have got some job or the other in a Parsi organization. So when I was thinking of taking on a Parsi magazine, Dr. Pestonji Warden, who was distantly related to us, came and said, instead of starting something new, take on Parsiana. So I said, fair enough, why start something new and kill something that is already there? If you can keep something going, nothing like it. So I agreed to take on Parsiana, and initially we printed about 400 copies, or 4,000 copies. We sold about 400 copies. And you had to struggle and work and work and work and get it up. But the community was very supportive. We had advertisers coming in, we had subscribers coming in, we had subscribers getting other people to subscribe, and Cyrus Ghazla is here, whose family was very supportive of the magazine. So it was a large-hearted, generous community that came to our assistance, and it made it possible for the publication to continue and grow. In those days, this is about, I took over Parsiana in 73, we had letterpress printing. So it was a very cumbersome job to get the magazine out. We had to get galley proofs, and then you could only go to certain presses that had galley proofs, had linotype machines or monotype machines. Those machines cost lakhs of rupees in those days. And then you had to wait your turn in the queue to get your galley proof coming to you. Then you had to have it corrected, send it back. Then you had to cut the galleys. You had to get a layout sheet. You had to paste that in. You had to get photographs. You had to send the photographs for block making. Then get the block, then make the page up. It was really cumbersome. And then there was a shortage in about 73 when this crisis broke up in the Middle East about petrol prices going up, etc. Paper was short, so we had to buy paper in the black market. Then the block maker said that zinc is not available. So one student who had been in class with me, whose younger brother was running an agency that had zinc, got us some zinc sheets so we could give it to our block maker, who could then in turn make the blocks. And I think the first year we were supposed to be a monthly, and we must have come out only about 3 or 4 times. We kept our costs to a bare minimum because we couldn't afford anything that was extravagant. And I think Parsiana has kept that in mind, the fact that we are working for the community and any money that we get is community money and we shouldn't squander it. So this was our first issue that we had taken out. And Minnie Botwala, who was the art director for the Life Insurance Corporation of India, and she was due for retirement in a few years, she designed the cover for us. So we had the subject, which was Parsi divorces, which was quite high in that time. It was about 10% of Parsi marriages. That is not a very scientific basis. That means if you took 100 marriages in a year and 10 divorces, and you said 10%, that's not how you calculate it correctly. But we took that thing, and then we prepared a press release and sent it out to all the papers saying that we had the highest divorce rate in the country. We hadn't verified anything, of course. But some of the papers did carry it. And anyway, it probably was high because in those days, divorce was something. And we titled the story, the cover story, The Cultural Alternative, saying that divorce was a way out for people who were probably stuck in a bad relationship. But Minnie Botwala deciding on what cover to have, and she said that she took these playing cards of the King of Hearts and the Queen of Hearts, cut them in half, and then pasted them on, and we got a cover. And this is only 2-color printing, but it looks impressive. Pardon?
Very modern.
Yes, modern, and it was bold. The sketches, this is the playing card sketches, were not as sharp as this. So Manjula Padmanabhan, who was our artist, sketched the cards for us. And then I think Minnie wanted them torn with the sort of the tear showing in the middle. But I don't think, somehow or the other, we didn't manage that. And this was another cover we had. I'm showing it to you. This is, I think, also on the Khaki Tours website. This is, again, just 2 colors. But because Manjula was able to do the illustrations and using some screens and with Minnie assisting us, it almost looks like it's more than 2 colors. I remember when we had our envelopes, Minnie asked me whether we could have them in 2 colors. And I said, no, we can't have them in 2 colors, it will cost too much. So we kept them in single color. But as soon as we got some income in, then we went ahead and got 2 colors on. So, you have to think all the time that anything you did was going to cost you money, and how much would you spend on it. So in our office, we don't have air conditioning, but we have, huge windows and breeze and all coming in. So it's ideal. I mean, I don't, maybe the others do, but then in 75, we had the emergency. So all the publications had to go and get their articles okayed by the censor. So Freedom First Masani moved the Bombay High Court and said, no, we are not going to go over there. We'll stop publication. And A.D. Golwala, who edited Opinion, said, we'll go to the censor. So I'd gone with him, and I knew there was no way the censor was going to pass his editorial. So the censor looked at all the papers, and he took the editorial and he put it at the end. And he said, I'll get back to you. Golwala and I left, and Golwala said, I'm not going to wait for the censor, I'm going to go ahead. So we went ahead and printed it. Then I think the mouth printing press was printing it at that time, and I think they pressured Mouch not to print it. So they gave it to another printer, and then the police went there and broke up the type, etc. So that fizzled out. So finally we took cyclostyling. And in the meantime, we got notice from the magistrate to come and explain why. I think the print line wasn't there, or something or the other was missing. I don't remember what it was. And Golwala was there. I was with him. We had A.G. Nurani is one of our lawyers. Ram Jethmalani's daughter was also there. We went the whole dhagla of us. And the magistrate happened to be a Parsi, Jahal Vakil, who became the chief magistrate later on. And he was quite jovial, etc. He said, how much do you all want to pay? So one of the lawyers said, 200 rupees. He said, I will marry 50 rupees, but anyway, paid 200 rupees. So we paid 200 rupees and the matter ended over there. But then Galwala published again without any print line. We cyclostyled it. And this time the magistrate called us again. And the prosecutor kept asking, where is the cyclostyling machine? And I was quite worried about that because it was cyclostyled by a gentleman who I knew and who had done it as a favor. But the magistrate fortunately disregarded that and said, go ahead. I mean, didn't say go ahead, just pay a 50 rupee fine. We paid the fine and went home. But then Galwala said, we took some issues of the magazine and the post office kept them all there saying you can't post them. So we had to take them back and put them into envelopes and send the envelopes out. And when we had gone for the cyclostyling, the sheet was a rather large size, so we had to have it cut. And we went to the binder for the cutting. It was going along smoothly. Then the owner of the press came and I said, what is this? And I thought, my God, we're really going to be in the soup now. He picked it up and looked at it and he said, this is something, you all have principles. I used to have principles or something. He put it down and let us go and didn't make any complaint. But that's when you realize that, all right, you're fighting for a cause, Galwala's fighting for a cause, Masani's fighting for a cause. But what of all the people who are not fighting for the cause and are supporting you and who are going to get into trouble? So then you realize that it's not fair to them to put them in that kind of a situation. Fortunately, after 2 years, the emergency was lifted, then Freedom First resumed publication and we could go ahead with the opinion and print it. Am I running out of time? What time should I stop?
It's for your convenience.
Okay. My convenience will go on for a long time. So, in this kind of environment, Farrokh was a good fit. The reason why we took on Farrokh is because, A, being a chartered accountant, that means intellectually and intelligence-wise, he would fit the requirements. He had that, or he wouldn't have been a chartered accountant. And he certainly wouldn't have been at Deloitte. And at Deloitte, he had a cabin. We have a second-hand table, which we had over there, and no air conditioning or anything else. But Farrokh was very amiable, never complained about that, never made an issue of it. He seemed quite content to do it. And he used to be regular, then his kidneys started giving away, so he would go on dialysis. So first it was once a week, and then he would say on that day he can't do anything. Then it became twice a week. So then his load got less. Then I think the kidneys totally failed and other problems arose, and he was basically would be on the phone or work from the house or just to go here or there, keep it to a minimum. And every morning at about 9:30 he would phone and give his report of the earlier day. So I always looked forward to that. In case I was a little late, then I would call him up and ask whether he had called and then get his report for what it was. And then there was some new treatment that had been started. It was about 40 lakhs for an injection for the course, and it had not been successful abroad and it had never been tried in India. It was made by Dr. Reddy's, I think. And he tried that out, but it didn't work. And he said he was in a lot of pain, even turning from one side to the other had become difficult. When he had dialysis not very often, he would sometimes be hospitalized, have to, to recuperate or whatever it was. And eventually, he wasn't able to function. When we took on Parsiana in '73, we thought we were going to tell the story of the community, how it grew, what it was doing, etc., etc. And then at a particular time, we began to realize that you weren't telling the story of the community, you were basically writing the obituary of the community, because your numbers were going down. In the 1940 census, our population was 1,14,000. In the 2011 census, we were down to 57,000, that is half. And then 2020, we never had the census. And when the next census figure comes, it's going to be drastically low. I think it'll be less than 40,000. And added to that is we're an aging community. So it's not that you're going to, get an influx of people coming in. Plus you have restrictions that if a woman marries out, her children are not Parsi, so you lose out on over there, and about 50% marry out of the community. Of that 50%, about 50% are women who marry out. So your numbers are going down anyway. So in a way, it's good that Farrokh is not there to see that. But as far as journalists go, we would be reporting on that as a story. For Parsiana itself, we had a tough time getting people because it didn't have to be a Parsi who wrote for us. So for example, Geeta Doctor used to write, Manjula used to write. A lot of talented people would write and put in their efforts. But the number of journalists was getting less and less. Even at the Xavier Institute of Communications where I taught, the number of registrations in most of the courses has gone down. And what you found is that many of the people who graduated from or got a diploma from the journalism didn't actually go into journalism. They went into other allied fields. So it's not only, so finally we had to close Parsiana down in October 2025. But it's, what's happening to us is happening abroad also. A lot of newspapers in America, every week about one publication closes, whether it's a daily or a weekly. The print media is shrinking, and it's not that you can go online and say, all right, we'll get online. It's not that. What is online is basically much shorter, crisp, shorter attention span, and then you switch to something else. First, when they kept saying that videos are taking are predominant, movies and all our newspapers, etc., are not being read, that I didn't quite follow it. But then it seemed that these shorter videos where you get addictive, you watch one, then you watch the other, you switch from here to there, has a hold on people. And where the print is going to go, I don't know. Both the New York Times and the Washington Post have a lot of articles devoted to health, wellness, loneliness, diet, food, and they're doing that now to get readers in, and they're doing it to get online subscriptions. And the New York Times has got, I think, about 10 million online subscribers. Jeff Bezos is almost killing the Washington Post by cutting down on the staff. So the whole situation does look dismal. I mean, we went into journalism because we saw it both as something creative and an opportunity to do something, to serve a social cause, bring about change. We didn't bring about much change. I think in 50 years that we published, or 53, nothing really changed. Status of women is the same. All the reforms you push for, very few of them. Some things did come here and there. I can't say that nothing came. But the Rippon Club, for example, which I'm a member of, I'm ashamed to say, doesn't give full membership to women. Women can't vote, women can't come for the meeting, men can. So it's a social organization, nothing to do with religion. Even there you are discriminating against women. So you push for that, you lobby for that, but nothing changes. And the women's children to enter a fire temple, if she's married non-Parsi, in Delhi she can go, now in Jamshedpur she can go. But only 2 places in all of India where there are over 100 fire temples, and these women's children are not allowed, they're not considered Parsis. So, do you really bring about change? I don't know. I think, like I said in one of the editors, that we are a mirror. We don't bring out the change, but we tell people the position and the way it is. Fortunately, North America is different. In North America, you find that people are realize that what you did in India, you can't do there. And the laws of the land, you couldn't discriminate the way you can discriminate over here. So you can't say the man's child will be a Parsi, but the woman will not. You couldn't do that, and you couldn't bar them admission into an organization. And because we got a lot of community support, and because we kept our costs low, we could cover things. For example, like Parina's, another lady, Jasmine in office, would go out for these North American congresses and cover them. It cost a lot of money, but fortunately we got people over there who would advertise, who would sponsor an issue, so it wasn't a loss for us. But all that now, we don't have. To have professional journalists who go out and cover events is a pretty expensive proposition. The Washington Post has just cut off a lot of its editorial staff. So now, the system we had in America was we were on beats. So If I was doing labor, I covered labor in the state of Connecticut, for example. I think over here we don't have the beat system much. So you don't have an ongoing story. You don't know what's happening in labor from the last time to this time, how it has changed. So again, that's a loss. But to sustain that, you need staff. And to get the staff, you need payment. You need the money. And the Washington Post was losing, I don't know how many million dollars, over $100,000, I think, a year. So it is grim, but as long as there are people like Farrokh who gave everything up and came to work with us, as long as there are people like that, you feel there is some hope, if not for the profession itself, but perhaps in social media through the various outlets that are there. I was just talking with my friend Firdaus Gandevi about the Kama Institute, and we noticed that for this talk over here, Khaki Tools had done so much promotion, used social media, and made an awareness so that people who normally would not know about the talk came. But we've got to find ways to use all these things and take advantage of the thing. I mean, technology, if Parsiana lasted these years, it's science technology. In the old days, you wanted a photograph, you sent a letter to America to the person. That person took the photograph from somewhere, sent it to you. So 2 weeks for your letter to go, 2 weeks for your letter to come back, and then the photograph, maybe it was the right one or the wrong one or whatever it was. We used to rely a lot on illustrations because we didn't have photographs. Now with mobile phones and everything else, you can take photographs anywhere, you can send it in a matter of seconds across the world. Things have become a lot easier, but then anybody can be a journalist, anybody can be sending off stuff. It's no longer the preserve of a few. But I think as long as there are and there will be people like Farrokh, the profession will, to some extent or the other, prevail. Though in what form, in what shape, I really don't know. Okay, but I think I've exceeded my time.
Are there any questions you'd like
Sorry.
to ask?
I want to know how the logo came about.
The logo came about when Dr. Warden, who started Parsiana in '64, was working with, he was a resident, he was sort of on-call doctor for Hindustan Thompson. There was a Parsi artist there by the name of Bedwa, I forget his first name. And he designed the logo. It was different from this. Then when Mini Botwala, our designer, came on, she refined the thing, made it more sleek, more sophisticated. And from then we've kept that logo. If you notice the logo in the Times of India is sort of a Helvetica, more modern type, while the New York Times still preserves the old type. So I think that keeping something, preserving something is also part of the heritage situation, that you want to keep it consistent, keep it with an old sense of perhaps design, as versus today where everything is sans serif, everything is just Helvetica types, straight types without any frills on the bottom or top. But many did it, and that other gentleman done it. The other gentleman probably did it free of cost. Many also, we didn't pay anything much for it. So we're very fortunate that we got this kind of talent for almost no cost to us. So thank you.
Rina, you have a question?
Sorry.
Just wanted to ask, was there ever a thought of putting the magazine, my father used to read it religiously, of putting it, say, online before you had to close it down? Or would that have affected costs, or like asking?
No, you could have done online, but what we didn't have is journalists going out. You need someone to go out, interview somebody, talk to somebody, come back with a...
It wouldn't have worked in a volunteer kind of...
It wouldn't have worked? Well, online or print made no difference.
Yeah.
You needed the people.
Yeah.
And if the people weren't there, then that was the problem. If you had got younger people coming in, we had interns, we had people, some of the journalism students, but unless there's that ability to last something, and Farrokh stayed on. It's not that he worked for us for a year or two and then he got fed up and said, I'm not going to write anymore, I want to go into some other field, or I'll go and join an NGO. You want people who have that sense of commitment, and would enjoy doing it. You don't want someone grudgingly doing it because you're requesting them to do it and they feel that, obligated. So Farrokh had that. He wanted to do it. He was keen. When he had an interest in the stories, I said, he would write very well and cover all aspects of it. Any other questions?
Yes. Just an observation, just to add to what Jehangir talked about, walking down the street and looking at the lamp posts. I remember once when I think Farrokh and I had just emerged out of Mani Bhavan from Laburnum Road. We turned onto the main road, which is now called the Pandita Ramawai Road, and he was stressed what could HYR be on that road. Until I told him it's Harvey Road, that's when he sort of calmed down.
The other problem with heritage also is that the names keep changing. So we have two offices, one in the Parsiana Hospital, one in the Navsari building. So in the Parsiana Hospital, we have three roads around us. One was Prescott Road, one was Outram Road, one was Bastion Road. All three names have been changed. And Outram and Bastion are not sort of foreign names, because that happened to be that port area. And when Navsari building is, of course the road names have changed. Then the name of the building has changed. So it's a KK Chambers now because some Kedarnath company bought it that went into liquidation, 101 problems. But Navsari Chambers and Navsari building were the original homes of Tatas before they moved to Bombay House. I remember somebody coming and asking me, do you know where Jamshedji Tata sat? And I had no idea in which building he sat and where he sat. So when some people from Khaki Tours came into the office one day, they asked me, where did Farrokh sit? And I pointed it out. I was touched by that they were concerned and they wanted to know where he sat. It is a way of a tribute, a touching tribute. Anything else? And of course the name of the city also changed from Bombay to Mumbai, and Bharat may also change to India one day. So it's tough. And I think what Bharat is doing and what Khaki Tours is doing, preserving the old things, talking about it, is essential, because if we don't carry the stories forward and we don't know what's stated on the lampposts and everything else, we're going to forget about this aspect of Bombay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any individuals in the audience who'd like to come up and speak and share about their memories of Farrokh, taking a cue from something that Murli pointed out? Farrokh as an individual who I'm sure would have not liked asking twice.
Why don't you say something?
Sure, so, I mean, some of you were a part of the walk that happened from 4 p.m. onwards, and in fact, one of the references that was used was the lettering on the pillars, where we saw the letters MZR written on it. Now, the quiz question to you all is, which street am I talking about? M, Z and R, very close to the Parsi line in hospital.
Those who host the walk there can't answer, right?
Marsban Road. And so he was quite keen to talk about Khan Bahadur Mancharji Marsban. He's written about him in the Parsiana as well.
Yeah.
And he would always be chuffed about having a cover story put up, especially on the historical pieces. So whether it's Mancharji Marsban or Framji Kawasji Banaji, he would have a small statue of his in his house in Kolaba as well, at Pushroba. So we spoke a lot about all of this during the walk that we just did, and also some things that he would be renowned for, whether it was his love for correcting people's grammar, or looking at individuals and saying this person needs to have a shower very soon. So if I were to just add something with respect to Khaki, Khaki very recently had a different uniform where we wear a khaki colored shirt as well, which many would protest about, if I may add. But So,
the shirt.
huh?
We don't protest khaki shirts.
So it was not, no, I know, I finally got it. So somebody would say that to Farrokh, they said, when I wear this shirt, I look like a bus conductor. So Farrokh retorted to that, saying that maybe it's your face, it's not the shirt. and he would never mince his words about it.
Actually, like the book he contributed to, there can be a separate book called Farrokh Ball,
Yeah.
or Lord's Ball.
I want to say something. So
Come here now. Come.
Then I have to be there.
Yes.
So I had told Farrokh that I'm going to be recording oral history in Bandra, and I'm going to be talking to all these people, all the older people and the senior generation. And Farrokh was very encouraging, of course. Yes, you must, and all that. And so I went, and the first person I spoke to, I was very excited. I wrote it all out and I sent it to Farrokh, and I was like, Farrokh, here's the first piece, take a look at it. First there's silence. Then I'm like, oh my god, now I'm going to get like this comment. Farrokh writes back saying, I enjoyed the piece, but I have just one thing to say. You cannot start a piece by asking a person's age. So the first sentence out there was literally me asking Joe, this jazz player, like, oh Joe, how old are you? And Farrokh was totally like aghast. He was like, is that how you start a piece? So yeah, it was really interesting. After that I realized, no, never start with that, So I tuck it in somewhere else, and yeah, I think that met with Farrokh's approval. But it was really nice. I remember somebody once spoke to me about them living, they grew up at a bakery, Hirsch Bakery, and they said how their idea as kids of heaven was warm pav with wholesome butter. And Farrokh sent me a whole voice note on wholesome butter, and how as kids, all the gifts that they would get along with wholesome, and if you bought enough tins or enough labels, you could go and get it. So yeah, it was amazing. I think Farrokh always had something or the other to add, and his voice notes, yeah. I'm so happy that he sent voice.
Yeah. Basically, I just tell people, don't ask questions. Readers are paying you to give answers, so don't start with questions. And his Gujarati was also very good. I think Abhan will tell us a little maybe about his Gujarati.
Well, I'm really grateful to Farrokh, because when we started Zenobia, Dumasya, and I started editing Mumbai No Bahar, we really needed some help, and Farrokh was very good at Parsi Gujarati, and if he didn't know anything, he would find out and tell us, and very, very generous with his information, which made things much easier for us. So I really miss his little WhatsApp messages, which would come very often and clarify a lot for us. It was very much in my thoughts.
Yeah, please.
Excuse me. Can I photograph these ones? Just 2 minutes, I'll take
Please.
They're too beautiful.
Just this question that Vinayak just posted on the road, and it's once again thanks to my walks with impromptu walks, or just strolls with, actually I shouldn't call it walks, it's just strolls with Farrokh, where these little tidbits about the city and quizzing me. You forgot this? I think I taught you this, but at least good, this Marsban came to my mind, and it's all thanks to him. So yeah, just it's been a year, but missing his company, missing the wisdom that I got from him. Of course, his chats are still with me. Like most of you, I think it's common in this room, his zest for perfection, the voice notes. I think it's among all of us that it's still there. His voice notes, his messages are still precious. Even with Mayor, she still sends, this is what he had posted, and so yeah, very much there, still very much in our memories, and
we approach the end of today's small remembrance that we had for Farrokh, if I may ask Bharat to offer Mr. Patel a small memento for taking out the time for this as well.
No, no. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
This was a book, though it is in my name, a lot of people have contributed, including Farrokh. So you will
Okay,
have
oh
that.
great. Okay.
There's a small mug which we had made in memory of Sharda Dwivedi, whom we consider the
Okay.
patron saint of khaki.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So as we close, the small vote of thanks that I would like to share. First of all, to Mr. Patel for taking out the time for this.
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday.
Doesn't go.
Thank you so much for joining in.
No, pleasure.
To all of you who were taking out time for this gathering, and I hope we keep meeting again, time and again, because Farrokh comes up in memory not once a year, it's every other day where you remember something that he shared, or some comment that he had passed, or some rabbit hole he would make us go into. So that I think will continue to be there. Even for me, there are certain moments in my life that I experience where I feel that his guiding spirit or his words of wisdom have played a very important role in shaping who I am as an individual. So thank you for being a part of this. Mr. Cyrus Gazdar, thank you for coming today and supporting the Khaki Lab as well. I don't want to put you in a spot. And also Priya, Sharda for making sure that we were able to have this, and extra thanks to all of you who came for my walk. I know it's not easy as the weather starts getting hotter as well, but I think walking these streets is the best way for us to remember Farrokh. Of course, confined to Colaba and Fort only maybe. One of the comments I passed in the walk that he had posted was that Santa Claus is coming to town, not to Andheri. so please do keep up with that spirit as well. And thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Anos, for being there. Thank you.
Okay, those who have not seen the other office, please do, because there's a room dedicated to him. It is called Lord's, because we used to call him Lord of Colaba. So those who have not seen, we are more than happy to host you in the other office.
Yeah.